Joey, you're going back to Friday night for your first crack.
Yeah, well, I think this is the big talking point, and the time is now, and it's regards to the Blues. And we think it's pretty obvious for the footy world watching that if they want to play finals this year, and they expect to, they need to change their method now. They certainly need work, because when you look at the way that they are playing, they average the most disposals in the competition, yet they're 14th for generating inside 50s. That alone should be enough to say there's a lot of ball going around but not going where it should be going when you've got, you know, the two best young key forwards, we'd probably say Cameron and Hawkins, but with Mackay and Curnow, they've got to be doing much better than they are. And I think that it's becoming a concern. Either their players don't understand what their best method is, or they don't believe in it, because it looks to me like they kick when they should be handballing, they handball when they should be kicking, they blast it forward when they probably need to have control, and then they control the ball and go slow when they probably need to go forward. So I think there's a fair bit of work to do. There's time.
So is it major change they need to make in season, or is it just minor?
It's easier to change your offence as the season goes on than probably the way you defend. Defending takes a lot of training and working together. Their offence, they can evolve with that over the next few weeks. But time's running out. So where they're at, I know they're just sitting in the 8 now, but with the run they've got coming up, Bulldogs, Collingwood, Sydney, Melbourne and then Essendon before the bye, their season hinges over the next month. So they need to do something about their method.
Is there anything that you see that's a clear issue that you think could make it?
And we'll show some vision after. I want to get to the vision, but particularly off turnover, because I understand there are times you're not going to score every time you have the ball. So there are times when you do need to kick it around and find those uncontested marks and build it up. But and the good teams do it, when you have an opportunity to score, you've got to score, and they're not getting that done. And we'll have a look at some clips a bit later on.
You know, at times we weren't able to stand up against it, so that's the feedback we've got. We can either ignore it or we can accept it and get to work on it. So our choice is that we have to get to work on it, accept it and get better.
You want to play really well at home, but you've got to win on the road. So, you know, we set ourselves to do that tonight. We actually talked about that coming into the game, how important it is, especially on the big stage, Friday night, Carlton. A lot to play for, a bit of an 8-point game, sort of, in the early part of the year. So, yeah, the boys set themselves and did well.
Yes, they ticked the box. They got the big victory on the road, and it looked all done, didn't it, at three-quarter time? And then Carlton made the charge without most of their fans still being there.
Yeah. But
they fell short, and the Lions getting the even 100, 15-10, 100. I think 12 of their 15 goals came from their four of their key players, with Charlie Cameron and Zach Bailey kicking 4 each.
This is the game for me that said that their point of difference is special. And I haven't really seen it. They've played some pretty good footy. They've done some components of the game really well. They've defended well at times. They've moved the ball well at other times, been dangerous in the forward line. But I haven't seen them play like this. I haven't seen the complete performance forward of centre where they've engaged without the footy, like they did on the weekend. And Joey, it hit me pretty hard. And we'll play some vision and feel free to jump in. But what they did setting up the ground in an instant to lock the ball in is something that hits you, like I said, between the eyes when they've got already this glut of talent. They're probably the most talented forward half in the comp. And now they're playing with a system that allows all to express themselves. Charlie Cameron chasing and harassing like this. But there's nowhere to go with the ball. I mean, if Carlton look up, there is nowhere easy to move the ball out of the defensive 50. It's at minimum going to a contest. Look at this. This is one of the hardest things to do in real time from a set stoppage. Everyone's organised. So you pretty much get to explore and do what your team decides, whether it's defensively or aggressively on offence. So they're now setting up behind the ball as it goes deep into the goal square. Have a look there. Look at the wall that's already set. I think this is brilliant. Absolutely first-rate coaching and great method from the talent themselves. He wants to kick the ball there. But there's nowhere to go. There's nowhere to kick it to. So he knows if he blasts that out, Coleman kicks the easiest of goals. So he's forced to take 3 more steps. Bang, gone because of the harassment. I loved it, Joey, and it makes me change my attitude to Brisbane and elevate them up the ranks.
The biggest issue for Brisbane to win the flag was their ability to defend. And when you talk about team defence, it starts in your front half. All the good team defences start with forward half pressure. No one's ever disputed the talent that Brisbane have had, but now they're matching it with their effort and their work rate without the footy and their defensive pressure, and they are now a front half team. We saw it in the Fremantle game, we saw it again on Friday night. They are now challenging all these teams with their front half pressure, and that is what's going to hold them in good setting finals, being able to do that. So I agree. I think their system and their effort with their defensive stuff is matching the talent.
12 tackles inside the forward 50. It's a massive number. Yeah. And they kicked 9-9 in their forward half game. So whether they win it back in the forward 50 or that exiting kick. 9 of 15 goals, so 9 of 15. It's a big number. Something they've probably done that before, but it hasn't looked as complete as that. Is that a fair?
Spot on. I agree. Yeah, I think this is the best we've seen the Brisbane Lions. And the one player for me that epitomises the best of the Brisbane Lions, I think we're seeing the best version of this player. It's Charlie Cameron. I know he's kicked 50-plus goals in 3 of the last 4 years. He's been an All-Australian, but he's epitomising this Brisbane Lions. I know you call it a transformation, but their ability now to want to get after the opposition and pressure, and it is fueling him because he's getting rewarded still for it by kicking goals. So he's now combining. As at Adelaide, he was a small forward pressure player. His pressure numbers were elite. He's now got back to those numbers, but he's still got the added ability of kicking the goals, where he came to Brisbane and was basically like a mini full forward, wasn't he? So his marks on the lead are now the lowest they've been since he's been at Brisbane. He's not being used as the guy coming out of the goal square and taking marks in the lead. He's playing like a genuine small forward, getting up, applying pressure, but still getting his career high score involvements, and he's on track to kick another 50-plus goals. So it's the best we've seen Charlie Cameron play in his career, and it's part of the reason why Brisbane are going as well as they are.
All right, well, let's get to the main story, I guess, in terms of which we touched on at the start, which is Carlton and their plight now as to where they're at and their own worst enemy.
Yeah, and all the Carlton fans are getting frustrated. I mean, if you take away the North Melbourne and West Coast games, they're averaging 69 points a game. It's not good enough. And the reason why it's so frustrating is because they are ranked second for contested possession and 6th for turning the ball over. So they are still winning the ball back. But these are the opportunities to when you've got to use. You talk about using your numbers around the footy, Kingy. The good teams, when they have the numbers around the footy, have got to use those outnumber and handball and run at the opposition. But Carlton are a bit of a kick team. They're getting confused about when to blast the ball to their forwards and when to use their numbers around the footy. And that's what's getting them in trouble. So, as I said, they're top 5, top 6 for turning the ball over, but they're 11th for scoring off it. And the great teams find a way to score. You've got 3 players that you just flick a handball over the top, and they're running at Carlton, and they're getting it. You talk about the metres gained. Look at the forward handball they could give over to Kennedy. Or then the next one, you could go wide. You've got Hollands out wide. Flick the handball. So Carlton ranks 16th for metres gained for handball. So they do flick it around a lot, but that's at stoppage to basically release a kicker. They don't use their handball to run at the opposition and challenge them in transition. So I think that's just something that they can add pretty easily to their game if they just work on it a little bit.
Did they do that a bit more in the last quarter, or was that just
a little bit, but it's not natural for them. They still want to kick the ball. And I think they've got to be able to use their number in their hands, because last year it was their hands out of stoppage. And it was the forward handball, out of centre bounce.
That's exactly that.
And from stoppage. Yeah. But they're not doing it this year, and it's costing them opportunity to hit the scoreboard more off turnover, which is 60% of your score. It's when you get your chance. So I think that's something they can improve on. And if they do that, they'll score more and give themselves a chance to win more games.
What about Harry?
Well, talk with Dermot Brereton about this bit of vision here. So we know nothing about playing centre-half forward, Hutto, particularly you don't know anything about it. So let's have a look at the vision here. So the same clip that I showed before of Carlton winning the ball back in the goal square. Now, Mackay is still travelling down from centre-half forward. He should be 30 to 40 metres more advanced so that he's at least a contest for Coleman on exit. Now, he doesn't necessarily have to win it, but he has to be there to defuse the high ball and compete. They don't seem to work in sync as well as they should, Colonel Mackay. One covering skinny side, one working a bit harder to get down, just in case it's in one side, out the other for the back 6. So I don't know whether it's necessarily just a ball use or decision-making problem or the availability to use another forward coming forward. Now, if they need to pick another leading forward, we'll pick one. Because it's not working. It's not working, and I know Silvani's role in this team is critical, but I often wonder whether they would just be better off having DeConing there and having him charge around the ground as that big presence, because they lack a third option.
That's part of the debate going forward, I guess, isn't it?